Okay, so welcome everyone to the second mid-cycle of the Caracal development. Uh, I would like to, so whoever has joined just now, they can add their name to the attendees list. If they don't see the Etherpad, I can paste it again in the chat. Yeah, so I would like to start with some announcements. The first one being we have Festival of Access Reviews this Friday. So it's an event where we review extra small patches, which are quick ones to go. And like we observe in the past, like small patches have been sitting for over months, and this is a good event to get those merged. So yeah, if you're interested, you can join this Friday. It's a 2-hour long review session. We don't talk a lot. We just review patches and ask any doubts if we have them. Okay, so the next one is the runtime for the next cycle. There is a patch up by Gman regarding the runtimes for the next cycle. And there have been suggestions that we should also include Ubuntu 24.04, which is scheduled to be released on 25th April. I think it kind of matches our release. I think we will release Caracal in April only and start the new development cycle since then. And another comment regarding Python 3.12. And also there is, I think, a mail thread related to this where someone has questions about the runtimes that we should use and also some type annotation thing. I haven't gone through the whole thread, but I think he's asking for some improvements in the current way we we are defining these runtimes and the jobs. Like, yeah, I need to go through it to have any comments on them. But yeah, please take a look at the runtimes for the next cycle and add your suggestions there. Next up, we have the unmaintained branches. So Brian sent out an email. I think as of now, we have all the projects which had stable yoga branch moved to unmaintained yoga. And yeah, the transition is complete. And the mail is just about like, we don't have to worry about maintaining the unmaintained branches separately with the core group. We can rely on the global team, and it's an opt-in thing, so we can be a part of it or not, depends on the project. So for Center, I think we have decided that we won't be maintaining any unmaintained branches. Yeah, so I think yoga was the first phase, and after that we will be doing it for the other branches, like Victoria, I think till from Usuri till Zena. Yeah, maybe that.
Yeah, it's going to be Victoria and Newer. So Victoria will be the whatever. I never know which direction, but it's going to be Victoria and Newer will be the ones that are being maintained by that team. And apparently, a lot of Jeremy Stanley noticed there are a lot of people are proposing their unmaintained core groups, which is fine, except I guess people thought that they were supposed to do that. So that's why I sent out that email yesterday. But I think we're okay. Cinderlibs, I don't know if all the gates are green because, no, I think they are. And I think, so there are a couple of patches waiting to merge. If you want to propose patches to, I abandoned all the patches to stable yoga with a message that you can repropose them to unmaintained yoga. So you can do that now. The thing to remember is that, well, I don't know if the git review, the .git review is merged yet. So when you do git review locally to upload your patch, you need to say unmaintained /yoga. If you don't, it's not a big deal. You'll just get an error because it won't be able to find stable yoga, which is the default that's in .git review. But at some point, the .git review patch will be merged. I can't do it because I'm not on the unmaintained core team. So none of us can. So they'll do that at some point when they're getting things ready. And then I think that we're close to having all projects unmaintained yogas existing and the stable yogas deleted. So once that's done, I think they'll start working on the other ones. And it should go a little bit faster because they've worked out a few kinks. So that's all. So actually, so if anybody's interested in the unmaintained branches, just ping Tony Breeds or Elode in the OpenStack/releases. I think it's OpenStack Release is the name of the channel, and they'll be happy to add you after a short interview. I don't know if they're going to interview or not, and you don't have to agree to well, you got to agree to whatever they propose. So they'll be setting up. It's all very informal right now, but that's the way. If you're interested in the unmaintained stuff, that's how you get onto the unmaintained core. But anybody can propose patches just like you can to any of the branches, and anyone can +1 or -1 by doing reviews. So anyway, that's all.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, Fran, for the update. So I think for Cinder, we'll be handing over the branches to the unmaintained group, and they can take a look after. But as Brian said, if anyone is interested in maintaining those branches or getting patches merged in those, then surely you can contact the current course for that. Okay. Other than that, there are some upcoming milestones. So there is the extra AC freeze, which is, I think, the active contributor. So if you don't have any patch merged in the current development cycle, you will not be able to vote for the upcoming elections. I think there are two types, like the PTL ones and the TC ones. So you won't be able to vote in them. So I think it was just a reminder that if you want, you can get your contribution merged before 15th Feb. And yeah, after that, you won't be eligible for it. So yeah, that's one. And we have some other deadlines, like the non-client library freeze, which is OSBrick for us, is next week. And the client, the Cinder client, is the week after that. And same, we have the feature freeze also with that. And then yeah, that's the current release schedule. April 3rd is Caracal release, and we are going to hold the PTG for the next cycle from 8 to 12 April. Okay, so that's all the announcement I could find. Anything else that anyone would like to bring up? Yeah, I'm not sure if you can register for the PTG yet, but I've signed up the team for it. So Cinder will be a part of the next PTG. There is a question, but I'm not sure if. Maybe you can ask this on the mailing list and get an answer, because it requires more I think it's fetched Rohit in the Q&A. So it requires more details to debug such errors, and maybe you can ask this on the mailing list. Okay, we can.
Good evening, sir.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you. Good evening, sir. Actually, I sent this query earlier in the mailing list, but it's not accepted. So that's why my question is not public.
Okay, I'm not.
Did you mean the OpenStack Discuss mailing list?
Yeah, yes, sir. Actually, I sent, but it's not public. It's not accepted. It says ki your result is failed. Is in queue failed like this.
Or I think if you are not a subscriber to the list, it puts it in the queue, and then I don't know how long it takes to get approved to get in. So you might want to check and just see if you are subscribed to the mailing list, because I think if you're subscribed, stuff goes in right away.
Actually, I got so many mails related to OpenStack, so that I think I subscribed these things.
Right. Yeah, you gotta use filters, and you might even want to use a separate mail account just for OpenStack stuff, because yeah, it's you will get a lot of things. But I think that's probably the issue. And I don't know what the policy is, whether well, I guess if it didn't reject it and said it went to moderation, I think Jeremy checks those like once a week and just looks through. And the problem is we get a lot of spam to that list, so he's got to filter through a bunch of stuff. So that would hold up your submission.
True.
So the thing to do is go ahead and resubscribe and set up your mail filters to put most of this, anything that doesn't have Cinder in the subject line, to /dev null, and that might be the best way.
Sure. True, sir. Thank you. True.
Yeah. Also, I think the query is related more to the Horizon, because that's a GUI. So maybe that team could answer it. Hence, yeah, as Brian suggested, like better to resubscribe and try it on the mailing list and get an answer from them.
Sure. Thank you.
Okay, I guess we can get started with the topics then. The first one I added is related to the feature review. So we have 2 weeks and too many features. So I'll just share this Etherpad. Okay, so this first one, it's been there forever. Like, it's a very old patch, and even in the PTG we discussed about it. The author also showed us like nice presentations to describe the workflow for this. And I think the currently we require the Cinder patch to merge, and then there is the Nova patch. So the Nova has dependency on the Cinder patch, and then after the Nova patch merges, we have more Cinder patches to enhance it further. So I think that's the dependency chain as of now. So currently it is on Cinder. I took a look at it today. I've reviewed it. Have some suggestions and some comments on there. But yeah, anyone else, if you would like, you can take a look.
Jack, quick question. Is this features or bug fixes or both?
This is a new feature.
No, I mean for this list, because I'm seeing bug fixes in here as well. So is this list only supposed to be new features?
Sorry, you mean the whole Etherpad or just this?
The whole Etherpad. The whole Etherpad is it only supposed to be features? Because I'm seeing bug fixes in here as well.
I think they are added because there is again a dependency chain on these patches. Like, these should merge, and on top of that there is the feature. I think that's how it is.
Okay.
But yeah, if the authors are here, I can ask them. But that's how I see it.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. So for this feature, like I will be one of the reviewers. I think Jay took a look at it, and maybe once they update, maybe Jay, you would like to review it again. I mean, if you are okay as the second reviewer for this.
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks. Okay. I think this is covered. So next up, we have a feature by NetApp. So I remember we had a discussion about this as well. I haven't followed up if the approach that we discussed was implemented in this.
Rajat, approach is implemented as part of the. I proposed a new path set for that. Whatever approach we discussed in PTG, that is added to the current. This is the old PR. I added a new approach on top of that.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks for the update. So yeah. So for now, I think it's pending on reviews only. I can take a look at this as well. And we require a second reviewer for this. So any volunteers?
Sorry, can you point me to what you're talking about again? Because I got distracted. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was just saying, like, so we discussed an approach during the PTG. I need to remember what it was, but Janan says like they have implemented the discussed approach. So you need to take a look at this. So I will be the first. I can be one of the reviewers, but need a second reviewer to yeah, get it merged. So I was just asking if there were any volunteers.
What I'm sorry, what was the topic though?
It's the second feature, the LUN space allocation support for iSCSI in NetApp. So this is a NetApp specific feature. Okay, I can take a look for now and then ping someone if I feel it's in ready state. Yeah. Third one is the HP XP. It's the HA feature. So it had some dependencies which were merged. I think there is just a driver documentation update pending, which I don't think is very critical, but yeah, good to get that in. I think Brian, you took a look at it, and I also. So I just added you and I for this. You had like 17 comments, so I think good to check if those were addressed in this. And it's a doc change, so yeah, shouldn't take much time.
Okay.
Yeah, and for the main feature, I'm not really sure. Yeah. So yeah, again, if anyone is interested in reviewing this HP patch, I think it is to support HA high availability. It's maybe good to get some feedback from if any vendor has already implemented it. Good to get a review from them. Okay, so these were the ones that were carried forward from the past cycle because we couldn't merge them. And then we have some new ones that were added. So the next one is it is by Dell, and it's similar to the HPXP, like adding active support. It is fairly a small patch. I took a look at it, and I didn't find any issues with it, but I don't have enough knowledge about how active scenarios turn out, like the situations for failover and failback. So wanted someone with that knowledge to take a look at this. Okay, so I will take a look, but again, good to get some other feedback on it. And I think these are the ones that Simon was referring to, like these. Yeah, sorry, Gurka, you were saying something?
Yeah.
Is it just me, or I can't
No.
hear you?
Gorky, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So I was asking which of the patches was the active one?
So one is by Dell for the Dell PowerFlex driver. This is the patch. I will mention it in the chat. So yeah, it's a fairly small one, but it has some changes on the methods for. Yeah, sure, Simon. Okay. So it has changes on the driver for the failover methods. So yeah, I wasn't sure about all the scenarios where to think, but the code looks. I don't see much issues with the code, but yeah, good to get that perspective into it. And this one is by HPXP, and this might look like a very big patch, but it has mostly test. Like the main code changes are like 100, 200 lines. So these both are trying to implement the active HA for their drivers. Yeah, I think the main code changes are like in their REST API that they are making calls, and the driver changes to the driver are very minimal, like 20, 30 lines. So Yeah, so these are the ones that I was referring to for the HA thing. And yeah, then we have these features that have too many dependencies, and I think even the dependencies are features in itself. So yeah, not really sure what to do. I mean, we can take a look at them patch by patch, but so is this the only way like we could get in these features like with these dependencies, or we can have a way to split up the feature from the other patches so we can just focus on the feature review? If any of the author is here from Fujitsu or Hitachi. Okay, I can try to contact them after, I mean, later this week. But yeah, I think for now we can focus on the initial ones that have been, I mean, that don't have too many issues. They've already gone a couple of review revisions, and yeah, that's, we'll try to get as much in as possible in this cycle. Okay, coming back to the next topic. So this one is related to the OS Brick release, and I have linked the, so there is a link which mentions all the open patches, but these open patches goes way back to 2020. So I just wanted to know if there was anything important that we want to get in for the next week's release for OS Brick. We already released it in milestone 2, so a bunch of patches are already released, but for the main Caracal cycle, I added one of the patch, and I think there is one patch from Eric as well. So we can maybe prioritize that for this week.
The one I added there is a really easy review.
Okay, yeah. I can take a look if I have idea around that. Okay, so if there are any other patches in OS Brick that you want to get in for the release, just add them in this list and you can maybe take a look. And moving on, so the next topic, I think, yeah, it's by John. It's related to stable release.
Yeah, I think we've got it sorted. If there's anything we've missed, just put it there. I'm aware of Simon brought up the OS brick patch. There's a stable patch that needs to go in that relies on a brick patch, the import of constants. So we're going to do a brick release first and then a round of stable releases so we can create the dependency chain that will allow that to succeed. If there's anything else, let me know. That's all I got.
How long out are the next round of releases for Z in particular?
They are in my text editor, ready to push. Pretty much. I've got a couple of hashes to check. And,
I mean, if we miss this one, how long until the next one?
oh, I don't know. I need to go look at the schedule.
As I remember, like we don't have a strict strict thing about releases. I think we can do it. I usually used to do it every 2-3 months, like if there are a bunch of patches piled up. But yeah, in the next cycle, when we start the Dalmatian development cycle, then we will, I think, mark Z as unmaintained, like we will delete that branch. So I think before that would be a good time.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of significant ones pending for Z right now. I'll take a look there.
Yeah, I forgot I also had a patch that I wanted to get in. Thanks, John, for mentioning it. It's in 2023.1. It's related to the rebuild volume backed instance feature that we did. Okay, I think this is covered. Anything else on this topic? Okay, we can move on then.
Did we, for the
yeah.
stable releases, did we sort out the skip level upgrade job stuff? I think there's still one patch in flight about that. For CI issues.
Do we have a patch that is failing it?
Well, we have a patch open on Antelope that's fixing one of those issues. That's still open. And we've got one open on Z to remove some grenade jobs too. Well, that one's been approved this morning. Okay.
Yeah, I'm not very aware about this. But if we do the backports in sequence, okay, so you're saying like if there is a...
Well, they're not in sequence because one of them is a Antelope only fix, I think.
Oh.
Anyway, that's more CI stuff than actual release stuff. So maybe not on the same deadline, but we should look at it at some point.
Okay, I see. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thanks, Eric, for mentioning it. Okay, so for the next topic, adding possibility for user-facing information in volume types.
Yeah, that's for me.
Yeah, I just...
So I do have the use case that I want to see various information about volume types and what they allow to do as a user. So not an admin, but someone with member role or reader role. And two of those are, one of this is I would like to know whether that volume types will create encrypted volumes or not. This can currently only be seen as an admin. And another point would be, I would like to see whether that volume type will use a backend that replicates. So either is it replication enabled in Cinder, or is it replication enabled through Ceph? And those two things are very hard to get. Yeah, I would really like to have a uniform way to access such information as a user. And it would be really nice to have also machine readable way for, yeah, something like managed Kubernetes or something that would create also volumes. So I tried, I looked into the code and tried something, and I tried to go with user visible extra specs, but that fails because all the properties are used in the scheduling process, and I only want such information to be visible for the user. So I would like to know what would be a good way to achieve what my use case is about. Where should these information reside and be accessible?
Well,
That's a good question. Oh, good. Eric's going to answer.
Oh yeah, I don't know about answer. No, I have no idea what the actual answer is, but I will point out that this notion of wanting to be able to, as a user, or in some cases as an admin on the API, be able to query this kind of stuff has come up in different forms for a bunch of years, and we've never really, the user visible extra specs was the first swing at solving part of that, but it's I'm just trying to say that I appreciate that it's a good use case, that I think there should be a way for people to query this kind of thing, and I assume we're going to have to design that to make it happen.
So should
Yeah.
not
Yeah, well, I tried to look into what's already there, and I thought the what comes back to the user as a properties field would fit best for such information, but that is used completely in the scheduling process, and I did not see it in the volume properties, for example. So those can be just yeah, edited. I'm also not sure. It would mean a lot of work to integrate something like a metadata field or something.
Well, and this is about having a metadata field that would be manually populated by an admin, or are we trying to expose things that Cinder maybe already knows? I think maybe it's some of each.
Yeah, it's pretty easy to set something like encryption enabled as true or false value somewhere. It can be done when creating an encryption type.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, the primary one that was discussed a couple years ago with the user visible extra spec stuff was to determine if volumes were going to be able to be multi-attached. And so things like, will it be encrypted, definitely seems like it would be in the same category as that.
Yeah, the other point that also comes to me is right now as an admin, I can just put some key value pairs into the properties field, and that will crash the scheduling process. So that is another point which irritated me, because it was simply possible to play around with volume types like this, and not being able to create a volume with that volume type. But the volume type is all fine. It doesn't give an error in that point.
As of now, when we create an encryption type and associate with the volume type, what exactly do we see in the volume type details?
A normal user sees nothing.
And for an admin?
The encryption type is also included in the volume type.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah, but that's the easy case, is the encryption one. When you talk about whether it'll be replicated, it's a lot more complex to do, because in the encryption case, you have an encryption type that's tied to the volume type, but in the replication one, that's not really the case. And you have to have a very different way to figure out, when I create this volume, will it be scheduled to a backend that will replicate it? And Cinder at the moment wouldn't really have a way to programmatically do that for all volume types.
Exactly. That is more of a configuration of the backend.
Yeah, and you have to know that you've created a volume type that will only land on that backend and kind of thing.
Yeah. So if a volume is associated with a volume backend name to a particular backend, and that backend reports replication in their capabilities, I mean, we don't have that mechanism as of now, but we can look along the lines. Like for volume types that don't have a backend associated, we can't provide that information. But for volume types that have that association, maybe we can get a way to do that.
I don't know, that gets kind of strange, because then the behavior of that field is drastically different on different deployments.
Yeah, it won't be consistent.
Okay, so there's no easy answer then.
Well, for the encrypted case, it seems like we should be able to do something like we do with if a volume's encrypted, right? We just output a metadata that says encrypted true. So we could possibly change the volume type show response, so that if there's a volume type exists, something comes out in the volume detail. Yeah, if the encryption type exists on the type, then it would say encrypted true or something.
And I think that's what it does currently for admins, right?
I think there is an encrypted flag in volume details, but I think the use case is more
For volume type, though, is what we, because I don't think we have that in volume type.
Yeah, you might be right.
No, it's not. Because it's something weird as well.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised, but when I'm doing this stuff, I explicitly create an encrypted type so that I can test stuff with encrypted types, and I know exactly what it is. So I don't know how I've missed that this doesn't exist, except it never bothered me.
Yeah, so it would really be good to have some uniform way to access information, and to also not use the description, because then every deployer writes down something else, and it's really hard to achieve this. And for encryption, you can just remove the encryption type and still have it's saying in the description, hey, it's an encrypted volume type, but it isn't. So for encryption, I would really like to have it from the inside of Cinder given to the outside. Yeah. I guess there are some different ways, and I don't think any of them would be easy, as most of them would either try to add a new field, like the properties field that is just for user-facing information. That would need API and database changes. Or, and I don't know if you're okay with that, it would also be possible to get a list of excluded properties that will not be used in the scheduling process. Then the properties field could be reused, but I don't know.
Yeah, is it possible if we just skip some properties in the scheduling process? Like, I think we match them with the capabilities of the backend, and like you tried with encryption, I think. So
is what's happening, Josephine, you get a no valid host found kind of thing?
Yeah.
Because it can't satisfy, because nothing will satisfy
Yeah.
that. Right.
Well, in the replication one, presumably if you set an extra spec that said replication true, that could be a schedulable flag. I mean, if we've had it reported by the drivers and handled correctly. So I'm not sure if the answer for some of that is that doing it through the scheduler is actually useful. The two cases are kind of different, because
Yeah.
the replication one is really about backend configuration and capabilities, but the encryption one is really about how we handle the volume, kind of regardless of what's going on the back end for the most part. And it is the use case kind of, I'm trying to think through some of the use cases we discussed years ago around these ideas. So this was framed as, I want to look at a volume type and know if it can do X, but is the is the use case really that you want to look at the volume type, or do you just want to look at the deployment and say, will it do X? Or I just want to make sure we're not
the use case is that, for example, with some managing Kubernetes option, I would like to create a volume from an image with a certain volume type that fulfills encryption and that fulfills replication.
okay.
It just have to tell me, yes, I can handle that.
Well, and the replication one I also suspect is more complicated because I don't think it's really a Boolean, because there's replication means different things on different backends and might behave in different ways, and I'm not sure if true or false is really adequate for that one. But yeah, I get the idea.
Well, yeah, I already tried to go into that, and I would really like also to implement it, but I need a direction what to do and where to put this information. That's currently what's blocking me.
So I think my suggestion for the encryption case, and sorry I keep bouncing back and forth, but my suggestion for the encryption case would be that we figure out how to bubble that up into the scheduler, which I think would mostly be to report that encryption is supported, unless the driver says it's not, since basically all drivers are expected that just works with front-end encryption without any implementation in the driver. So I think we could put together a spec on how to expose the encryption support in the type through the scheduler. The replication one seems similar to me, but that may need more input from people who actually deal with replication than I know about. Do drivers currently report up any replication support in get volume stats and things to the scheduler?
The driver object has a has a Boolean for whether or not it supports replication. Is that what you mean, or is that something different?
Well, if we had, let's see, if we have, so in like update volume stats, we have some Boolean fields for things like multi-attach and thin provisioning, and I think some QoS stuff. If we had something similar for replication and actually had all drivers that support replication report up in the volume stats in some uniform way, then we could get that into the normal extra specs, consumable information. And then what this comes down to is adjusting policies about which ones are user visible, I think.
Maybe we have more than we think. Maybe, I don't know. I'd have to go and look in detail, but I know that enabled to support replication for a driver, the object has to set certain fields in the driver object itself. So you should have a programmatic way of knowing which ones do and don't, and maybe it's already available through the stats query. I'm not sure. I have to look.
Yeah, it looks like the stats stuff maybe is currently reporting a replication enabled field and some other ones.
Is that what you mean, or do we need something different?
Well, I mean, that's the beginning of it, but then I think you need.
But replication enabled is one of the user visible extra specs. So where's that coming from?
It's
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, we've got three. We've got availability zones, multi-attach, and replication enabled.
Mm-hmm.
So it should be possible now to do that with the replication enabled one if it was configured right.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, that won't be able if you use Ceph with configured replication as a backend, and Cinder doesn't know anything about it. That's really the problem here.
Well, that gets into the kind of tricky thing about replication where
Yeah.
I mean, I can see that the Ceph driver reports that field, but
We're talking about the RBD Cinder driver.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess it would be possible to configure replication without the driver knowing anything about it, but that is not how. That was not the intended way to configure things. The intended way is to have the driver be aware of it and set up replication when volumes are created and migrated, with the cooperation of the backend enabling and doing the replication on a request. When this happens, you have the replication enabled field set, and you can request it when you create volumes via volume types.
So yeah, it seems like the replication one is almost there already.
So even if in the volume type we say like replication is true, unless the backend supports it, and if the volume is not tied to a particular backend that supports it, we will fail with the volume creation. So was that the main concern, that if a volume type even shows it as supported, there is no guarantee that the volume that will be created from it will be replicated or would fail?
Well, but it will be replicated if we require it. Well, okay, so if you schedule based on it, I think it will be replicated, right? If that driver reports replication enabled, then anything you create on it should be replicated, as far as I know.
Yeah, it will execute the code that it has to enable replication. So as far as the driver object in Cinder knows, the replication was either successful or the operation, the creation would fail.
So I think for the replication case, I think we'd want to go look closer at what you were trying to do when you were testing this, because it seems like there might be a way to do that one. The encryption one, we definitely will need to write code for. Were you looking at this with a particular backend, Josephine?
Yeah, because many many deployments do have a Ceph backend that has configured replication internally, but that will not show in the volume type. You won't see it in the volume type.
Yeah, that field's only going to show for things managed by Cinder. So in that
Yeah.
case, you were hoping to be able to put a flag that says this type really is replicated, just not by Cinder's mechanism.
Yeah, because the administrator, no, it only has the Ceph backend and their replication is configured.
Yeah.
This might be slightly off topic. Would we want to display the so I'm thinking we would do one thing we could do is we could populate the extra specs when you display them through the API with like encryption enabled, sort of along the lines of replication enabled. And then all these things would show up in the same place. But it wouldn't really be an extra spec. What we would do is in the API code, we'd check to see if the volume type had an encryption type. And if it did, we would populate this thing. So it wouldn't actually exist in the database. It would just show up with the extra specs when you did a volume type show request.
Yep, that could be a solution for the encryption part.
And then with the replication one, yeah, that's tough, because if Cinder doesn't know about it, then we would have to have a mechanism for the operator to tell Cinder about it.
Yeah.
Or some other place that you can just put admin defined characteristics that aren't really used by the scheduler or anything.
Yeah, that's the other thing, is we could do something like volume type metadata. But I guess I'm looking at the user visible extra specs proposal was you want this stuff to just happen automatically based on the way things are configured.
Well, yeah, because the request for that part here is really not extra specs at all. It's really that I want like custom tags for a type. Yeah. I know it will do certain things, but it's not handled by Cinder.
We don't quite want custom tags because we want them to be standardized across deployments. So that Kubernetes, for instance, could find these things.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Jeez. I mean, this is a horrible hack, so I want everybody to forget I even suggested this. I mean, we could reuse the replication enabled extra spec on the volume type show to just, I don't know, I guess that's just stupid. I mean, so basically, Josephine, what you would like is in this situation where you've got Ceph configured so it's doing the mirroring or whatever, and Cinder doesn't know, the operator can just make replication _ enabled in the extra spec say true. and then everybody's happy.
Well,
Yeah,
that also raises questions about what happens. What do you do if somebody has
turns it off, or
or if you've said it has replication, but then you also have to understand that if you try to do like a failover, it's not going to work.
Yeah, that's right.
So we have to we have to make sure we don't add something that Cinder interprets as replication being enabled when it's not, because then you end up with calls that don't function.
Right. Okay.
So if the driver performs replication and doesn't let Cinder know about it, isn't that a driver thing that we should fix? Like, to make it consistent, we kept the replication enabled thing for all drivers. And if the driver is not reporting replication but doing it, like, I think that's the case we are trying to handle, right? The driver is doing it but not reporting it to Cinder.
Well, I mean, I think it's a valid kind of situation to decide that you're going to configure Ceph replication, but not actually use it in Cinder because you have some completely different disaster recovery procedure that you're going to orchestrate outside of Cinder. So I wouldn't say it's like a bug that it doesn't report it. I think it makes sense probably for people who are doing that.
So even for the user, like, it's the same thing, right? Like, if for Cinder, the driver is not doing replication, even if it is doing it for some other use case, then even for the user also, it's not doing replication, because that's to address a use case, different use case, not as the user intended.
Well, yeah, we're meaning different things when we say replication. I mean, there's replication as in the backend is mirroring data somewhere. And then there's replication as in you have the ability to use the Cinder feature to keep track of replication and do some kind of failover procedure. And they're really two different things. Which kind of leads me back to wishing I understood more about why this is useful from the Kubernetes side, but that may be kind of a whole different discussion.
Well, I didn't want to hijack the whole meeting, so maybe we could just continue on the mailing list and maybe sleep over some ideas, or I don't know.
Yeah, I think we have enough to put together some kind of proposal for how to do it on the encryption part, maybe. But yeah, there's a lot to figure out on the other pieces.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I guess just so I don't forget this. Maybe the thing to do for the encryption case is just handle it the way we do with volumes. And we just have a dedicated field that says encrypted true or false. And not, I was kind of worried, wanted to stick it into with the extra specs to make it sort of uniform, but maybe we should just handle that as a whole separate thing. Because as long as everybody knows where to look for it, that's all we really want. And it doesn't seem, it seems like that would be a field that would, like, we've got the is public field. It just seems like it's a basic property. And then we would just do it completely in the REST API so that the type show would just check to see if an encryption type exists for this volume type and then populates that field.
It would be good to make sure that we understand kind of any adjacent use cases, like is Boolean sufficient, or if we do a Boolean, is someone going to come back and say, well, I need to know what the key size and the algorithm is, and that kind of thing. We'll also have to make sure we think through the fact that we, in theory, still support backend encryption, even though I'm not sure if anyone uses it, because it might have some odd implications there too.
Yeah, that would be sort of like this replication case, right, where it's happening.
Well, my impression is that people only use front-end encryption anyway, and it would probably be wise to figure out if we could just get rid of backend altogether. But it's been just kind of sitting there for many years at this point, and I don't know, maybe someone's using it, not really sure.
Okay, so for now, I think there will be a spec proposal for this with the ideas that we discussed, and or on the mailing list, like wherever we want to continue the discussion on it. Okay. Yeah, Josephine, would you like to take that action item for yourself? Okay. Yeah. Yeah, thanks for the discussion. Okay. Yeah, anything else on this topic?
Yeah, I'll help review and shape up the spec once we get moving on that.
Okay. Thanks, Eric.
I can send something to the mailing list saying that we're proposing to remove backend encryption and see if anybody goes crazy.
I think we can look and see what drivers have stuff about it. I think maybe NetApp did a long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Let's chat later and kind of figure out how to frame that.
Right.
Yeah. And if you would like to add hashtag action for yourself, just to remember about it, or I can add that. Okay. Yeah. Thanks for adding it. It will also show up in the mid-cycle summary. So, yeah. Okay. Moving on to the next topic. It's NetApp LUN space allocation. So we did discuss that this is a feature we want to review. But if there is anything else on this, please go ahead.
I vaguely remember a discussion about this quite a while back, but I don't remember enough about it to recall exactly what this is.
I think it's related to thin provisioning. And
well, the commit message immediately says it's not related to thin provisioning. So that was my first too.
It's about SCSI reporting about the space details from the storage backend. It's not about thin provisioning.
yeah, I think that was the point of like the conflict where we proposed to be included this as a, I mean, not as an extra spec, just as a thin provisioning that driver reports. And yeah, I need to check again, like what was concluded back then. So where do we set this right now? It's not in the volume tab extra specs, right?
Yeah, it would be.
So is it not possible to use it right now?
I can't hear you talking. I think this patch is wiring up all the stuff in the driver so that the extra specs do what that functionality does. It's adding a new extra spec and adding functionality to the driver to make it support that.
Eric, on top of that, we are reporting back to scheduler saying unmap is supported, so that any kind of virtualization, right? They can execute unmap command from their side, so that storage can do the cleanup to make available storage synchronized between what is reported at the compute side and the storage side. Hope I am clear. There is an extra spec that is for NetApp specific use case. Like this is called space allocation. So we said we are going to support extra spec. On top of that, we are going to report to the scheduler saying that unmap is supported, so that whenever there is a space change from the compute side, same will be reflected from the storage side. So it will be the reported available and consumed storage will be reported properly from the compute and storage.
Yeah, I see now, like that was the agreed upon design that will have this property in extra specs and also NetApp driver reporting discard.
Yeah, discussions.
Okay, I can take a look since I have some context around it.
Thank you, Rajat. But initially, when NetApp started space allocation, right? This discard feature is supported only for thin provisioning. The attribute says thin provisioning space allocation, but it is supported for both thin and thick provisioning. I presented same to you. That is there in the latest release of NetApp. Attribute says SCSI thin provisioning supported, but it is supported for both thin and thick provisioning. The discard value will be reported back to the scheduler for both the thin and thick if space allocation is enabled from the storage side.
Okay. Yeah, anything else on this one? Okay, we can move to the next topic then, which is related to NFS online extend. So yeah, another feature that we discussed, but if there is more to it.
I think we can keep this short. Thank you for the review, by the way. I wouldn't have discussed much more than last time. It was more to keep the topic and to keep the topic present. But since you've already committed to reviewing it, I think you can move to the next point. There's nothing that we cannot discuss and review, I think.
Okay. It mentions a point about like approach to race conditions with volume snapshot creation.
Yeah, that was just a question. Well, for the NFS driver, or in general, as we also discussed last time, the best approach for this is probably to just add logs to the operations, and so that no snapshot or that no resize can be started if a snapshot operation is running. And for the NFS driver, there's already several actions that are using the decorators from the coordination package in the Cinder project to synchronize them. And but it makes sense to use them there, I think. And for the NetApp NFS driver, there is nothing like this, and it was just a question if it is okay to use the same approach there, or if there's something I have to look out for, because the NetApp driver is more complex, and I haven't as much as an overview over there if there's anything that could break by introducing a new locking mechanism in the driver.
No, it should be fine to use the same lock utilities that we use for other operations in there. We'll just need to make sure that the extend operations well, we need to make sure that there's some lock shared between snapshots and extend, I think, because that's currently not the case, if I remember correctly.
Well, the decorators in the NFS driver are using the driver name and the volume ID to synchronize it. And I think if I use the same approach for the NetApp NFS driver, this should work.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so that's it from me.
And there is no case possible where we are extending a volume and creating a snapshot at the same time because of the volume status. So that shouldn't be the case. Like the same volume ID being used for two different operations, like snapshot and extend.
I'm not. Is that true?
Yeah, I'm just saying it shouldn't be possible, right? To extend a volume and at the same time create a snapshot out of it.
Does the operation put it in an extending state or something?
Yeah, that's so I think the snapshot operation checks if the volume is either available or extending, and only proceeds then. But I mean, if we introduce the locking, then this works in both directions. So
if you use the volume ID as the locking parameter, like the driver name and the volume ID, and then the operations could conflict, right?
Yeah.
How do you mean could conflict?
I mean, if we allow creating snapshots in extending volume state and you're using volume ID as the locking mechanism, then both the operations are happening at the same time, right? Like the extending is going on and we are also like doing a snapshot operation. So that lock won't work exactly as we intended to be. Like those operations should be isolated to each other.
Yeah, but shouldn't the locking prohibit that?
Yeah, exactly. But you are using volume ID as the yeah, I'm not sure if I'm misunderstanding it, but if you use volume ID for the log part and it's the same volume that is being used for both operations, then both can happen at the same time and there is no locking. I mean, during extend, we should be able to, like the snapshot should go into wait.
No, but if I understand the locking mechanism correctly, then the lock is created for the volume and or the driver name and the volume ID, and then any other operation that wants to acquire the same lock has to wait until the lock is freed again. That's usually how I understand it. I have maybe I need to check back.
Yeah, I think you're right. Like if the common lock is being shared between those, yeah, I think you're right there. Okay, sorry for the confusion around this.
Oh, good.
Rajat, from the NetApp side, we can do both volume extend and snapshot at the same time.
Yeah, I think that's what Conrad was saying. Like in NetApp, there is no locking mechanism as of now.
Yeah, it is not required. Snapshot is instantaneous. in NetApp case, and extend also will happen simultaneously because it's a pointer, just a pointer. In snapshot is just a pointer in NetApp storage.
But for the NetApp NFS driver, there will still be an issue with the volume file, or not?
No, it's not an issue.
Yeah. So maybe I need to look into this some more and see if it's actually a problem there. But the NetApp NFS driver actually interacts with Nova on online snapshots. But I think I saw the possibility that I think I saw one option that there is a fallback to the NFS driver snapshot operation, if I remember correctly. And in that case, we would probably need the lock. But also, I need to check if it's even possible for online snapshot. So yeah, I probably need to look into this some more.
Okay, and you can always take reference from the NetApp team how something should. I mean, how exactly does that work out for NetApp? So the team can help there.
Is there a list of people involved in a NetApp driver? Or
I don't know if the wiki page. I think the wiki page is just for CI maintainers, but I think the active contributors. I think Janand is one of them, and
Yeah, you can reach out to me. I'm from NetApp.
okay, thanks.
Okay, great. So for this, I think that's the action. Okay, thanks. So for the next topic, it's about support for bring your own keys.
So hi everyone. Just wanted to get in touch with you with the whole topic. It's totally fine if it can only be reviewed and merged for 24.2, the next development cycle. Yeah, as mentioned, I'm coming, or this request is coming from the Kubernetes layer, where end users do not directly interact with OpenStack and also, of course, don't have admin rights. And it has, so they don't even see if a volume is encrypted or not. But even if it is encrypted right now, it is transparently for the user which keys are used. So they are auto-generated as far as I've seen from the code so far. And there is a need or request, for example, from the legal perspective, and also maybe, for example, to have a common tool set in the company to generate keys and handle these keys for encryption, to also use these keys for encryption with volumes that are handled by Cinder. And that's where what this blueprint and spec is about so far. And well, if you find some time to let me know if further working on it makes sense at all, and how we can achieve this. Yep, just let me know.
So I think this is a good proposal. If I understand, I just started looking at the spec here today. If I understand, the main idea here would be that a user puts a key in Barbican and then tells Cinder create a volume using that key, is kind of the proposed idea, right?
Right. It should be the easiest way because nearly no code changes are required for that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it makes sense. We'll have to work on a few things. One that jumps out is that we have for encryption hardening, we have the ability in a lot of cases to change the encryption key on a volume when it's cloned. And it may be that in the bring your own key scenario, someone might not want that to happen, because I guess the premise is that they own the key in Barbican, and Cinder shouldn't be putting its own new key on volumes. So we'll have to kind of work out the semantics of how that should work, and that may involve tagging volumes that they were encrypted with the bring your own key thing so that we handle them differently. Not sure. We'll have to go through some of that in the spec probably.
I see. Okay.
Because I would assume that, and it might help in the spec to get some stronger idea of the use cases. I mean, I imagine part of it is that the user wants to be able to delete their own key, and then nobody else has access to the volumes who would have access to that cloud, right? And if
that would be ideal, but shouldn't work in OpenStack because they are copied anyway for new volumes.
Yeah, so we'll have to kind of make sure that we know how we want to handle that. And you have to handle things like what we do with the key when we upload the volume to Glance. And somebody is currently working on encrypted backups. So we'll have to look at that and see if we need to cover that with this bring your own key concept as well, like we do with volumes. I don't see any problem with doing this. I think we'll have to spend some time nailing down details on it, but I don't think it should be that hard to do.
Okay, sounds great.
Are there similar bring your own key efforts for other projects underway in OpenStack?
I guess Josephine's topic of image encryption would be partly also require that own set of keys is provided. I think that has been discussed sometimes already in this round, or also with the latest PG, but Josephine can share more on that.
Yeah, image encryption uses bring your own key only, because the image needs to be encrypted on the client, and so Glance doesn't create the key.
So I'm not sure what else to say about it for now. I'll leave some comments on this spec, and I guess we'll start most of the discussion there.
Yeah, I guess the only thing that we need to keep in mind is that the key that's stored in Barbican, the way Cinder uses it in a particular way to actually generate the LUX passphrase. So you, I don't know what I'm trying to say. It's just,
well, it has interesting implications because it basically means that even if you delete the key from Barbican, you have to assume that if it was mounted on a compute node, then that compute node could still be able to open the volume. You know, it's I don't know. But yeah, I guess the main idea there is to make sure that for whatever standards are trying to be met, the Cinder volume encryption key with LUX is used in a way where that key encrypts the encryption key that's actually used to encrypt the data. Which I think is fine. It's just, you know, we need to make sure we understand the parameters of how this stuff works exactly.
Okay, I think from my point of view, that's already enough. Thanks for the feedback and input. And yes, I guess we can continue a discussion on that also on the spec, for example.
Also, would be good to bring this up in the next cycle PTG, so we remember that this is one of the potential specs we would like to implement.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks.
We may need, this is kind of straightforward right now, I think, because the general assumption is that if you're doing volume encryption in Cinder, we're using a 256-bit key. Once we get to the point where we could accept 512-bit keys, the API may get more complicated for how to do this, because you can't just provide, well, Barbican would already know the key length. So I guess as long as you've got it in Barbican, Cinder's fine. I don't know. Sounds good to me, I think.
yeah, I guess the main thing, as long as there's no expectation that you can, create an image out of your volume and then decrypt it using your key. If we say no, that we don't support that, then we'll be fine. Right? Because otherwise, then you get into all these weird issues about how exactly the key is stored in Barbican and whether it's big endian or not. So we just want to be clear on the the parameters of this. So you put something into Barbican, and then that's the thing we'll use.
Which you'll want to have good documentation around, because I remember doing that a few years ago, and it's shuffling data in and out of Barbican is not trivial for a user to do, for sure.
No, and even even the Barbican people have trouble with that. Okay. Just keep it in mind when we read the spec.
Okay, I think with that we can move to the last two topics. of the Midcycle. So I will go quickly on this one. We only have 10 minutes. So regarding the CI compliance check, I just wanted to mention to the driver vendors that there are two places that needs. So we have a way to check the CI reporting, and there is this website for Cinder Stats where we check. I think it's updated every 4 hours. So we use it as a source of truth for if the driver is actually CI is actually reporting or not. And we recently found out a case where HP was reporting. I mean, their CI was reporting fine, but it wasn't shown in that page like the CI report. So the issue was that I mean, there are two things. Like, so one is the CI wiki page on the driver side, and going to that wiki page, it should also contain the right information about the CI to check if it's reporting fine. So I just read the mail from HP recently. They fixed that issue. It's reporting fine for them. But if any driver has these two fields, if they are not correct, then they should check about that. I mentioned the example from HP, like their driver code where the CI wiki name is mentioned, and the wiki page for the HP. You can look at it for your driver, either NetApp or Pure or any other vendor driver. And yeah, this will be useful because if we do the CI compliance check and your CI doesn't seem to be reporting fine, then we will mark the driver as unsupported. Where also on the patch you can just review and correct it, but just as a awareness that these two places should reflect the correct information about the driver CI. Yeah, if there are no doubts regarding that, then the last topic that I added was regarding the gate situation. So I'm still able to see a bunch of failures on my patches. They are every time different and caused because of different things. We did merge the swap change, and it might have improved the situation, but not like from the stability point of view. I can still see like some issues in our CI. And I remember that the Z swap support was merged in DevStack, but when I did that code search query, then I couldn't see it any Zul job defined. So by default, it is disabled, and we need to enable it in CI job manually. And I don't see it enabled. So anyone has any idea about this? Like, if it's a Nova effort, but if anyone is tracking it.
Well, I'm aware of what it is. I guess we need to go figure out which jobs we need to turn it on for, right?
Yeah, I was thinking if Nova did some experimental test, like they introduced the parameter, so they wanted to check some jobs for them, and if it works, then we can replicate that.
Yeah, no, the plan was Nova would enable this on some jobs, so maybe they just haven't gotten around to it yet. But we could
Well, it looks like the KSM part is on by default, which should get some wins. So that's really the Z swap we have to turn on.
the anecdotal thing I heard yesterday in the TC meeting is that there seemed to be like random guest kernel panics during the tests, and they seem to happen more on volume tests.
Well, I'd seen one or two of those, and have those increased since they merged this?
I don't know about that.
Yeah.
I don't know if we have statistics on that.
So if I want to find out kind of what's going on in this area, is the TC discussions where all that's happening at this point?
No, I think the thing to do would be to check with the Nova team. I believe they have like a dedicated, they're discussing CI stuff at every weekly meeting. I don't think they have a special meeting just for that. You might want to just reach out to, if you really want to follow up, I'd reach out to Melanie Witt, and just ask her, when they're meeting, what's the best way to do that.
It would be interesting to query the out of memory stats for our jobs since this is merged, because I would kind of have the hope that if we go with the theory that we were running out of memory because there was too many instances running at the same time, just the KSM part of this might be a big enough of a win to where the Z swap is irrelevant for us. But I just don't really know.
Okay. Yeah. Regarding the concurrency part, I did take a look at that, but I think Glance team had very bad experience with that. Like when they lowered the concurrency, then jobs were timing out, and again the jobs take a lot of time, and they had to increase the timeout for individual jobs. Even I did it for the Glance-cinder job, which was timing out frequently. So I didn't.
Well, yeah, they were at like a 2-hour timeout, and if you drop the concurrency, you would expect it to take significantly longer to run.
Yeah, I wasn't sure like if we wanted to do that for our jobs. Yeah.
Didn't we already for some of them? I don't remember.
I think Luigi started that effort, but the QA team said that we should be looking into the underlying issues more than increasing the job, like increasing the concurrency. And
Well, I think the problem is at the moment, everybody is saying that the Cinder job failures seem to be random and different every time. So I don't really know how to figure if, C-swap or concurrency changes are even the answer. Because we need some kind of handle on, like, some kind of pattern of what's failing. And I don't know that any of us have a lot of visibility into that right now.
so Luigi, when you say that concurrency was fine, I think by default it was 6.
Yeah, they said that increasing concurrency shouldn't be a problem because, let me remember exactly. So the point was that it was leading to a better utilization of the CPUs, while with a lower concurrency, you end up distributing the jobs in an unbalanced way or something like that. I'm not totally sure that that's going to work, especially for our jobs. Still, after some changes, I don't know, we discussed that, I think, in one of the past cycles or the past BTG, and there were some changes by some of you, and things were a bit better. I've seen more successfully passing. Where I still see failures, every time I see a failures, it's not like it's failing every time, but it's that LVM multi-attach job. Others may fail randomly.
Does that job just create two backends for both LVM, I guess, and do some multi-attach test?
I don't remember. Let me check quickly.
I think it's creates a multi-attach volume and attaches it to two instances and writes from one instance and reads from the other. I think I vaguely remember that could be the case.
We don't need a special job if it just does that, though, right?
Because we need to enable the volume multi-attach option. I don't remember why it was added separately, to be honest. Let me check the history. Okay, this was the patch. Rajat, you added the job. Because we didn't have anything with multi-attach enabled. Now the question is, I didn't check which tests are failing. So I guess the idea was to only run specific tests which are relevant to this use case, right? So we probably need to ensure that the tests which are failing are not the ones which are not relevant for the job. But if the job itself, if the specific job which was, if the specific test which was meant for that job is failing, then we may have a problem. Or just some resource issue. I don't know.
I think we need to look at this multi-attach job setup, because I see that the job enables DevStack enable volume multi-attach. And the implication there seems to be, well, it makes DevStack create an extra volume type that has multi-attach turned on. But the implication there is that we're not running multi-attach tests for things like Ceph, which would be not ideal if that's the case. I'm still not really understanding why this is its own job and not just done in the regular jobs.
I don't remember anymore. Maybe it was just because it was new enough. I don't remember.
Well, that's what's weird. I mean, it's an ancient feature as far as Cinder goes. So I'm not, I don't know. But it probably means we're skipping multi-attach testing for Ceph if this is doing what I think it does.
So do you mean we should enable multi-attach at the base job level, like for all the jobs, all the Tempest jobs?
Well, yeah, I don't understand why every Cinder job couldn't just run multi-attach Tempest tests. I'm not sure why you have to create a special environment to do that.
Because it depends on the driver.
I don't think we have any drivers that don't support multi-attach.
Okay, let me see.
Even if we did.
NFS, generic NFS.
Yeah, it's probably true. But even then, it would just be a flag. Like, I mean, we don't have separate jobs for whether we test encryption or not. It's just flags in the configuration.
That's true, but then we have if we enable that and the basic tests start failing, we have a problem. So let's try to fix the test so that it's reliable and then merge it back to the generic LVM job and then enable the option in the SF job as well.
Yeah, I mean, it would be good to understand why it's failing for sure.
For me, it's the Tempest integrated storage and the LVM LIO Barbican job that fails most of the time. But yeah, I don't go too deep into the analysis, like just the high-level errors.
Well, my gut sense is usually when I look at the LIO Barbican failures, they're not usually Cinder failures. I guess I need to look a little deeper and see if it's something related to resource consumption or whatever. But I see a lot of failures happen in there that are, Neutron just broke somehow, or we created an instance and couldn't SSH into it. And I see a lot that don't appear to be tied to Cinder itself.
Yeah, for the failing test, I usually check at least the Cinder API and volume logs for that, and I don't see anything. Like most of the time, there is no error related to. There are errors, but not related to the test that failed. So
right, and this is kind of what I was getting at a minute ago. It seems like one of our biggest issues with this is just having good visibility of what is actually failing and what we need to go work on. I'm not sure exactly how to get that, other than hoping that someone spends a bunch of time digging into every random failure.
okay, I will try to look into the Etherpad that Melanie has created for the open search, and maybe if I can try to do that from Cinder perspective, at least like get the specific failures, like we can search it and get all the jobs that failed with that. Okay, and with that we are over time. I will just stop the recording.